Last time I asked you to look through these questions and see which ones would be more suitable for a dichotomous key. Hope you were able to figure out which one would be more appropriate, or why would one question be more appropriate than another. So now we have a different we have different types of buttons, and we want to try to classify them so that each button is separate from the other. Now this is directly from the textbook, and we can have a look and see what the textbook shows us on how we can do this. So we can see there's different shapes and patterns, and also number of holes on the buttons. So in the textbook, it uses this system. It's like asking questions, but it's not an actual question. So my first task for you is, can you turn these into a yes or no question? Have a try and see if you can turn them into a yes and a no question. For example, let's do the first one. So in part A, it asks if it has a round shape or it has a straight shape. So the first question is asking us, has a round shape or has a straight shape? Now, we can turn this into a yes or no question by saying, is this shape round or is this shape straight? And that way we turned a non yes or no question into a yes and no question. The next category has 4 holes, has 2 holes, striped, plain colored. Fourth one is striped or plain colored. But part 3 it's only for buttons that have 4 holes, whereas for part 4 is only for buttons that have 2 holes. Part 5 is blue or red, and that only applies for shape that are plain colored. Part 6 is if it's 3-sided or 4-sided. And then part 7 if it has 2 holes or 4 holes. So this is how the diagram ends up being. So let's have a look and see if we can understand what this diagram is showing us. Now, if you can see, there is a title for the graph or the diagram. These buttons can be classified using different keys. It's a flow chart key, that's the name of the diagram. On the top we have buttons, and they divide it into round buttons and straight-sided buttons. If it's a round button, it can have 2 holes or 4 holes. If it has 2 holes, it can be plain or striped, and if it's plain, it can be blue or red. So you can see how these 3 buttons are separated from each other. They all have 2 holes, but this one has stripes, this one is blue, and this one is red. If we look at the other side of the rounded buttons, the 4 holes, there is either plain or striped. So this is a plain 4 holes rounded button, as this one is a striped 4 holes rounded button. If we look at the other side of the diagram, we have the sided buttons, and those can have 3 sides or they can have 4 sides. The ones that have 4 sides can have 2 holes or they can have 4 holes. You can see there is a 4-hole, 4-sides, straight-sided button. Here there is 4-sided, 2 holes, straight-sided buttons, and here there is a 3-sided button. Now, if you can see, we could have separated the 4-sided buttons into green and red. So there is many ways into classifying those buttons. It just has to be a good way to separate each button in a different category. So my question is, where would we place this in the diagram? Could it be fit in one of these 8 categories, or could we, or we might need to make a different category? Why do you think so? Think about that. Now, working in pairs, I want you to come up with a question to classify at least 6 of your classmates. So we want to try to classify them so each classmate is separate from the other. After you classify them, I want you to represent your classification in a diagram, and I want you to include your classmate names. Now, if you can also, if you don't want to write their names and you just want to draw a simple picture of them, that's okay as well. This is an example of how I would go about it. So we have 4 teachers. We have Mr. Cavallari, we have Mr. Hannah, just me, Miss Ring, and we have Miss Monroe. And so we might start with male or female. And then if it's male, do they wear glasses or they don't? If they females, we can ask the same question. Do they wear glasses? Do they not? You can see we separated each teacher into a different category. So Mr. Cavallari wears glasses and is a male. Mr. Hannah doesn't wear glasses and is a male. Miss Ring wears glasses and she's a female. Miss Monroe doesn't wear glasses and she's a female. So think about if you can use the same question over and over again rather than come up with many different questions. It makes it easier to have just a few questions. So this is my question for you to do. So I want you to use figure 6.1.15, which is this figure, to describe what a motorbike is and what rollerblades are. So in the diagrams they give specific descriptions that describe the different vehicles. So have a look at how they describe motorbike. I'll help you with this one. So if we have a look at motorbike, it has 2 wheels and it uses petrol. And obviously all of these are form of transport. So you can go back in the diagram to see based on what characteristics we classified those vehicles. So now for part B, can you modify the key, so this diagram, so that it includes a tricycle? Think about what characteristics does a tricycle have and where would it fit in this diagram? Now, classification has a history. It developed through time. So first, ancient humans classified animals as dangerous and non-dangerous. They classified plants as edible and poisonous. So that helped them obviously because ancient humans mainly cared about surviving. That means avoiding any dangerous animals and knowing which animals are not dangerous. Also, knowing which plants they can eat and which plants they should avoid because they're poisonous. When humans developed farming, they divided animals into wild, domestic, flying, creeping, and water animals. Obviously, that helped them because they want to know which one are the domestic animals so they can use them in farming. Wild animals they will try to avoid. Um, a Swedish scientist, Carl Linnaeus, organized the classification of living things in a hierarchy, meaning there is some kind of order to it, from top to bottom, with kingdom on top and species on the lowest level. So this picture shows us how he made different groups or different levels that different characteristics of animals can be put into. So kingdoms are very general. One kingdom is the animal kingdom. All animals go into the animal kingdom. And there's phylum, there's class, there's order, there's family, there's genus, and species. Species are very, very specific. Pretty much all um, all animals in one species will look pretty much the same, will eat the same food, they'll have the same structures, they'll have similar colors, they will live in similar areas, um, they will share the same habits or actions. So the kingdom is very, very general. Animals they all differ from each other. Species very specific. So I want you to have a read about how indigenous people classified their environment. The next video I will read the article for you.